Everyone. So today we will have another topic to discuss, which is all about the regression analysis. So actually, class, there is an application about this statistical tool, most especially those people who are in the field of business. Okay? Yung mga may business dyan or yung may mga kanya-kanyang kumpanya. For example, if you are working in a company wherein you want to, and your boss or the head of your company, let's say you're the head of your company, wants you to predict the possible net income of your company for the next year or for the following years or next 5 years or by connecting with the net income for the past 10 years, then with the use of this regression analysis, you can predict what would be your net income for the following years. Or suppose it is given that the combined heights of the parents is significantly correlated. Okay, yung height ng mga magulang natin is significantly correlated to the height of the offspring, di ba? Okay, do you think that there is with the use of regression analysis, we can predict the height of a newly born boy or from the height of his father and mother. So in this lesson class, we will take a deeper look at the trend line wherein we will go to each more accurate analysis by getting its mathematical equation. So later we will come up with an equation that will help us or that we will be going to use in prediction. So the field of statistics class that deals with prediction is called the regression analysis. Okay. It talks about prediction. Okay. So that is an introduction about the regression analysis. And what is a regression analysis? If two variables are correlated, we can predict the value of one variable in terms of the other variable. So the relationship or correlation must be significant. So wherein we can proceed with the regression analysis before we perform first the correlation before we proceed with the regression analysis, wherein our result should be wherein the relationship of the two variables exist, okay, or must be significant. So this means, class, that the actual relationship exists in the population. So we talk about population in here. Always remember that the relationship exists in the population, not just in sample. The regression analysis is then used to predict the value of one variable in terms of the other variable. So therefore, we do correlation analysis before performing regression analysis. That's why I discussed first about the correlation before proceeding with this regression analysis. So if you haven't watched the lecture video about the correlation, you can click the link from the description later, because you need to understand first what is correlation before moving from this topic, which is the regression analysis. So if the test of significance of R yields a significant result, so if our R yields a significant result, our correlation, then regression analysis can be performed. Okay, we can perform the regression analysis. But if the test of significance of R yields no significant result, okay, there is no relationship, no correlation, the correlation is not significant, then regression analysis should not be performed. Okay, remember that. So if the test of significance of R yields a significant result, we proceed with the regression. But if it is not, then regression analysis should not be performed. So here's the formula in the term in testing the significance of R. This is the t-test wherein actually there's a lot of t-tests, but we are going to use the t-test for R. So we're in here. So R is for the value of our correlation, square root of n minus 2 all over 1 minus r squared, wherein we have here the df, or the degree of freedom, which is n minus 2. So the value of degree of freedom later is what we are going to use to determine the critical value or tabular value. So later I will show you the table wherein we can apply the value of the degree of freedom. So if the value of the computed t is greater than the critical value plus, the greater is the chance to reject the null hypothesis. Okay? Remember that if the value of t is greater than the critical value or the tabular value, the greater is the chance to reject the null hypothesis. Okay? So we have here the steps in testing the significance of R. So step 1 is state the null and alternative hypothesis. So I already included the null and the alternative hypothesis from the previous lesson. Step 2, compute for the value of t. Okay. Then step 3, compare the computed value of t with the critical value of t as found in the table. So based on the null hypothesis, the test calls for a two-tailed test. So mostly two-tailed test yung ginagamit in here. Step 4, make a decision. So if the computed value of t is equal or greater than the critical value of t, reject the null hypothesis. Then accept the alternative hypothesis. Then step 5, summarize the results. Okay, let's have an example for the family income and savings. A researcher investigated the relationship between family income and savings. Using the data from 15 families, the computed R between income and savings was found to be 0.76. So the value of our correlation is 0.76. Is the computed R significant at 0.05 level of significance? Can we conclude that the relation really exists? So this 0.05 here is the value of our alpha, okay, the level of significance. So the solution is, so we have here the steps and we have here the solution. So for the step 1, state the null and the alternative hypothesis. So our null is there is no significant relationship between the family income and savings. So since we talked about the family income and savings from the problem. And the alternative is there is a significant relationship between the family income and savings. So in here class, dapat marunong kayong mag-determine also what would be your independent and dependent variable. Next step, compute for the value of t using the formula. So this is our formula. So here, our n is 15 and the value of our r is 0.76. N is 15 families, which is, we get it from the problem given. Given yung 15 natin. And the value of r is given also, which is 0.76. Now, we can substitute now the given value of n and r to our formula, and that will give us 4.22. So the value of our t is 4.22. Now the step 3 is we then compare with computed value of t with the critical value of t. So using the degree of freedom n minus 2, so df is equal to 15 minus 2, that will give us 13 with the level of significance 0.05. So our alpha is 0.05 and our hypothesis as a two-tailed test, yan, since makikita nyo, based on this statement, there's no significant relationship between the family income and there is a significant relationship. Okay? Hindi siya nag-indicate ng direction. Diba? Remember the two-tailed and one-tailed test? Then, we get from the table of t values that the critical value of t is 2.16 critical value. So, paano nakuha yung 2.16? Remember that our degree of freedom is 13 and our alpha is 0.05 and our test is two-tailed test. So, if we will check with the table, so in here, so our degree of freedom is 13, that is two-tailed, and our alpha is 0.05. So, where did the 0.05 and our DF meet? So, dito sila nag-meet. That's why our critical value is 2.160. Kaya nakuha yung 2.160 kanina. Okay? So, we already compared. So, nakuha natin yung value ng critical value natin and we have also the value of our t here, t computed. So, we then make now our decision. Since the computed value of t is greater than, is it greater than? Yes. Our value of t is 4.22 and our t computed, or I mean the critical value is 2.16. So, t value is greater than the critical value, which is 4.22 is greater than 2.16. Then, we reject the null hypothesis. Okay? So, we say that there is a significant relationship between family income and savings. Of course, di ba? Sometimes if we all know that if you have the higher income, mas malaki din yung yung tawag dito, yung savings. Of course, kapag konti naman yung sinasahod mo, yung income mo, malaki din ba? Depende na siguro yung mga gastusin, expenses natin, di ba? So, we now summarize the result. So, we conclude that the relationship between income and family savings really exists in the population. So, this is the step on how we test the significance of R. So, of course, in here, madali lang natin nakuha dito, class, kasi given yung value ng R. But, if the value of R is not given, of course, you will use the formula of correlation. Okay? So, you get first the value of your R. So, after getting the value of your R, then you state your alternative and null hypothesis, which is two-tailed test based from the problem given. Then you compute for the t value, which is using this formula. Then you compare the t value with the critical value. So when where we can get the critical value, so we will be using the value of our df, our alpha, and what hypothesis test is used by which is applying it to the table, then connecting it with the table, then kapag nakuha na natin doon, then we then now make our decision by comparing the critical value, the computed t value to the critical value. Then that is where we can now decide whether to reject or accept our null hypothesis. Then we now summarize the result, which will give us now if the relation really exists from the two variables or not. Okay? If the computed R is significant, class, so in here, the computed R is significant because we reject the null hypothesis. So there is a significant relationship between the family income and savings. So if the computed R is significant, the regression analysis can be performed. Gaya ng sinabi ko kanina. That's why we need to perform first the correlation before proceeding with the regression analysis. So if the So computed R is significant, the regression analysis can be performed. So when performing regression analysis, we have to determine the dependent and the independent variable. Okay? So kapag mag-proceed na tayo sa regression analysis, we need to determine the dependent and the independent variable. So how can we determine the dependent and the independent variable? So we all know that in sentence we have the dependent and independent, right? Wherein the dependent can't stand alone, while the independent can stand alone. So to identify which is dependent and independent variable, put each one on the blank in the statement, then evaluate whether the statement is logical. Okay. So when two variables is related, one is dependent variable and the other is independent variable. So in here, if you already determine the two variables from the given problem, so you write here class kung logical ba. Just like the family savings depends upon income, or family income depends upon savings. Okay, tingnan nyo kung logical. Kung may sense ba yung connection ng dalawa. Okay? So that is how we determine depends, which means this variable is dependent to this variable. Okay, so that is how we can determine, or there are some problems that we can immediately determine what is the independent and dependent variable. If you already know how to determine the dependent and independent variable, let's now proceed with the regression line. Okay. So if you want to remember about the slope-intercept form, okay, which is y is equal to mx plus b, this slope-intercept form class is just the same with the equation on the regression line. Okay, wherein this equation will help us to determine later about our prediction for the unknown. Okay, kung ano yung i-predict natin later about sa given problem. So, the equation y prime is equal to bx plus a is the equation of the regression line where a is the y-intercept and b is the slope of the regression line. The values of a and b can be found using the formula. So, in here, we will be using this formula for a and b to create later our regression equation, or our equation or our equation that we can use later for prediction. So the value of our a is the summation of y times the summation of the x squared minus summation of x times summation of xy all over n times the summation of x squared minus the square of the summation of x. And b is equal to n times the summation of xy minus summation of x times summation of y all over n. So same lang sila ng denominator. So wherein n here is the number of our entry, kung ilan yung entry natin. So please remember this value of, or the formula for getting the value of a and b. We have steps class in finding the regression equation and for the prediction later. So first step is find the value of the correlation coefficient or the value of our R. Kasi a while back, diba sabi ko nga, we need to do first the correlation analysis before the regression analysis. So first, we need to get the value of our R. Step 2 is test the significance of R. So yun yung ginawa natin kanina sa previous example natin. So if R is significant, proceed to regression analysis. So that is the step 3. But if our R is not significant, then regression analysis cannot be done. Means, from that step 2 pa lang mag-stop na tayo. For if the value of R is significant, then we proceed with the step 3 wherein we need to find the values of A and B. Yung equation kanina ng pinakita ko from the previous slide. Then step 4, substitute the values of A and B in the regression line, which is y prime is equal to bx plus A. Okay? Actually, hanggang step 4 lang yan, pero mahaba-habang proseso yan, class. Let's have an example. So the following data shows number of absences and the number of quizzes missed by 5 students. If there is a significant relationship between the two variables, predict the number of quizzes missed by a student who was absent for 6 days. So ito daw yung 5 students natin wherein 1 student, isa ang number of absent niya, tapos isa lang yung na-miss niyang quiz. Yung pangalawang student, isa ang number of absent niya, 2 quiz ang na-miss niya. Ito naman, pangatlo, 2 absent niya, 4 ang na-miss niyang quiz. Tapos, the fourth student, 3 ang absent niya, 2 lang ang na-miss niyang quiz. And for the 5 student, 4 yung na-miss niya, 4 yung absent niya, wherein 4 din yung na-miss ng quiz. Wherein, the problem is that we need to predict the number of quizzes by a student who was absent for 6 days. So, kung ang isang estudyante daw ay nag-absent ng 6 days, ilang miss quiz kaya? Ilan kaya ang mamimiss niyang quiz? Yun yung i-predict natin. But before that, let us solve or identify first if there is a significant relationship between the number of absences and the number of missed quizzes. Okay? So, first step is we need to identify the dependent and independent variables. So, the dependent variable, always remember class at that dependent, nakadepende yung y natin. So, dependent variable will be our value of y, and the independent variable will be our value of x. Okay? Always remember this, or remember this about the independent, which is x, and the dependent, which is y. So, the dependent variable y is the number of missed quizzes, of course. Diba? The number of missed quizzes is dependent upon the number of absences, right? Kasi wala ka namang mamimiss na quiz kung hindi ka mag-absent. So, kung hindi ka absent, wala kang mamimiss na quiz. So, therefore, the number of absences is the independent, which is the number of quizzes is dependent to the number of absences. Okay? So, our x would be the number of absences and our y will be the number of missed quizzes. Okay? Next, compute the correlation coefficient. So, we will now compute the value of our R. So, we have the table in here. So, x will be the number of absences. So, we have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Y will be the number of missed quizzes. So, 1, 2, 4, 2, 4. So, paano yung step natin? Square our value of x. Square our value of y. Then, we multiply the two variables. So, we have here the given data. 1, 1, 4, 9, 16. So, 1, 4, 16, 4, 16. Then, 1 times 1, 1. 1 times 2, 2. 2 times 2, 2 times 4, 8. 3 times 2, 6. And 4 times 4, 16. Wherein, the summation of x here, so the summation of x here, class, is 11, summation of y is 14. Summation of x squared is 31. Summation of y squared is 41. And the summation of xy is 33. Okay? So, we will then now substitute our given or yung nakuha natin na value sa formula natin. So, the correlation of the variable xy is equal to, that is 5 times 33 minus 11 times 14 all over the square root of 5 times 31 minus 11 squared times 5 times 41 minus 14 squared. That will give us approximately 0.63. So, our value of R is 0.63. Okay? Nakuha na natin yung value ng R natin. Now, let's test the significance of R. So, using this formula. So, our N is 5 and our R is 0.63. So, 0.63 times 5 minus 2 over 1 minus 0.63 square. Bakit 5 yung N natin? Kasi we only have 5 students from the given formula. Our value of T is approximately 1.41. Then we compare now the value of T computed and the critical value. So our DF is 5 minus 2. That will give us 3. Our alpha is 0.05, which is two-tailed test. Yan, two-tailed test. Always. Then, we get from the table of T values that the critical value of T is 3.182. So, let's see kung tama. Ayun. So, DF is 3. Level of significance, 0.05. Two-tailed, that is 3.182. So, we then now make our decision. Since the computed value of T is less than or equal to the critical value. So, less than or equal to dapat to the critical value of T, that is 1.41 is less than or equal to 3.182. So, what is our decision? We accept the null hypothesis because the T computed is less than or equal to the critical value. Therefore, there is no significant relationship between the two variables. Okay? Walang relationship daw nung yung number of absences sa number of missed quizzes. Why? If you were to go back with the table, we can't predict Kasi parang walang connection. Kasi there's a one student there wherein isa lang ang na-miss niyang quiz and there is this one student na 2 ang absent niya. May 4 siyang miss quizzes. Okay. Parang walang connection doon. So, for the summary of our results, it appears that there is no significant relationship between the number of absences and the number of missed quizzes. Therefore, we will not proceed with the regression analysis. So, mag-stop na tayo sa step 2 natin about test the significance of R. Okay? So, kung walang relationship, then mag-stop na tayo. How about if the relationship exists? Okay? Let's have another example. The following data pertains to the heights of fathers and their eldest sons in inches. Okay? Inches ito ha. If there is a significant relationship between the two variables, so if there is a significant relationship between the height of the father and the height of the son, we will predict the height of the son if the height of his father is 78 inches. So, ipe-predict natin kung ano kaya ang height ng anak, nung anak na lalaki, kung 78 inches daw yung height ng tatay. So, ayan. So, our x here is the height of the father, of course. Of course, the height of the father depends upon the height of the height of the son depends upon the height of the father. Okay? Yung height ni anak nakadepende sa height ng tatay. So, our x is the height of the father. So, that is, yan, x squared, y squared, and xy. So, if you want to manually compute, or if you want to recompute this one, okay lang. So, our summation of x is 659. Our summation of y is 680. All you have to do is to add this given data. Summation of x squared is 43,601. Summation of y squared is 46,356. And the summation of xy is 44,947. So, ito yung mga kailangan natin later. Okay, now, so let's have the steps. So, first step, identify the dependent and independent variables. So, the dependent is the height of the son, which is the value of y, and the independent is the height of the father, which is the value of x. Then, we now compute with the correlation coefficient using the formula. Using this formula, so we get the value r is equal to 0.95. All we have to do is to substitute class the given or the value that we get from the given data. So, our R is 0.95. Then, we test the significance. So, the computed T is 8.61 using this formula. Then, we now compare the computed T with the critical value. So, the critical value is 2.306. Let's see from the table. Okay, our DF is 8 because the given data is 10. So, 10 minus 2 is 8. So, 0.05, then 2 tails, so 2.306. So, we then now make our decision. Since the computed value of T is greater than the critical value, greater than or equal to the critical value, which is 8.61 is greater than or equal to 2.306. So, what is our decision? We reject the null hypothesis. Therefore, there is a significant relationship between the two variables. The result is that there is a sufficient evidence to conclude that there is a significant relationship between the number of height of the father and the height of the son. Therefore, we will proceed to regression analysis kasi ang nakuha natin is that the relation exists. Okay? Now, we compute the values of A and B. So, we proceed with the step 3. So, we compute the values of A and B using the formula. So, this is the formula for A and B. So, our summation of y from the given, yung nakuha pa natin kanina value. So, 680 times 43,601 minus 659 times 44,947 divided by n times 43,601 minus the square of 659. That will give us 16.55. And the value of b, we substitute, then we get 0.48. Okay, you can use calculator to compute this one. Then, since we get the value of A and B already, which is 16.55 and 0.78 respectively, so we now form the regression equation, which is the step 4 na tayo. Kasi, nag-proceed tayo ng step 3 because the relationship exists. Kasi we reject the null hypothesis and we accepted the alternative hypothesis. So, for the step 4, we then now create our regression equation from the regression line or the regression, which is y prime is equal to bx plus a. So we substitute the value of a and b. So y prime is equal to, our b is 0.48x plus 16.55. So that this is the regression equation for predicting the height of the son given the height of the father. So ito yung gagamitin natin to predict what would be the height of the son kung 78 inches daw ang height ni father. So let's see kung ano ang makukuha natin. So predict the height of the son if the height of the father is 78 inches. So find the value of y when x is equal to 78 inches in the regression equation. So that is y prime is equal to 0.48x plus 16.55. That is 0.78 times 78 kasi 78 inches yung height ni father plus 16.55. That will give us 77.39 or 77 inches. So the predicted height of the son whose father is 78 inches is 77 inches. But remember class that this is just a predicted value based on the given data. Nagbe-base lang tayo dun sa given data. Okay? So that is how we use regression analysis class in predicting. Okay? About prediction. So, I hope you understand my discussion about the testing the significance of R in the regression analysis. So, thank you for watching. If you have some question, you can click from the comment, then I will entertain your question. Okay, so thank you for watching. God bless everyone. Bye bye.